Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast with Elizabeth Chappell, where every week we dive into how you can turn your craft into a successful career. Get ready to have the career you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 91 of the Craft to Career podcast. This is Elizabeth Chappell of Quilters Candy, and this week we have the rest of my team who I'm going to introduce to you. So last week I had part one of introducing you to my employees, the people on my team, and this week I have the rest of my team. So you'll hear from Anna of Wax and Wayne Studio. You'll hear what she does. I'll keep you in suspense. We have Charisse of So Hooked on Treasures, Serena Shoup of Course Bookkeeping, and Misty Mang. So you can hear what they do for me, how I found them, and you'll even hear me picking Serena's brain on hiring more people for my team. So you'll get to hear firsthand some of my questions and answers about the very thing that we're talking about. So before we jump in, let me read the review from this week. It's from Apple Podcasts, and it's from Stevens_14. Steven says, "Speaks to my soul. Thank you for being open and honest about the highs and lows of breaking into the quilting business world. I recently started my t-shirt memory quilt business, and I was surprised how many people were saying I'm charging too much. I'm not. I've checked. I loved your podcast about knowing your worth and holding strong. It's tough out there, but I'm grateful for your advice. Because at the end of the day, I'd like to be paid as much or more than a McDonald's worker." Well, isn't that the truth? We can really value the work that we do. And there's actually a couple of episodes where I talk about this. Episode 89, I talk about a few different mindset things that get in the way of people having success. And this one I talk about the fear of raising our prices. And then if you go back a little bit longer, and I don't know because I can't see it right here, but there is an entire episode on knowing your worth and charging for your worth, what your time and energy is worth. So if you have not listened to those episodes, I suggest you go back and listen to those and feel empowered. And it's very interesting. I mean, applying that to your own business, because I've put out these episodes and then I have my mastermind, and one of the mastermind members came and said, "I got this email," and it was someone saying, "It feels like what you're doing is very exclusive in an economy where we're trying to be open and letting everybody in. You're doing the exact opposite." And it's just interesting when it happens to you, it feels like very isolating and like you're, being, singled out. But you're not alone. And it's not being exclusive, charging what you're worth, which may be more than what people think you should be charging, but you are running a business. So anyhow, listen to those past episodes. I won't go back into it right now. I've said enough on the topic there. But this week, I'm really excited for those of you who are curious about hiring somebody. How do you hire someone? And this week, actually, on this episode, you'll hear the very, very first employee that I ever hired way back in 2016. She's still with me. You'll hear how that's morphed over time and how that happened that I hired her. So what that looked like way back in the day and what she does now, plus many others. And this week, if you are looking for advice on how to hire someone, what to do, what to look for, how to onboard them, I have a PDF with some tips for you. Some tips on how to find someone that would be a good fit. Some tips for having a trial period where you can just make sure you're the right fit. Some wording for if it's not the right fit. And things to look for. How to make sure this person's going to be a good fit. There's even a personality test that I'll put a link to on the PDF where you can have people take a personality test and see, are they more analytical? Would they be better doing this position? Are they more creative? Would they be better doing this position? As well as just some ideas of tasks, things that you could have people do for you. And so if you're interested in that, click the show notes. It's going to be quilterscandy.com/91. And you can get the link to that download for some help and guidance in hiring somebody. And with that, let's jump in and let me introduce you to the rest of my team. Anna, thanks so much for being here. For our listeners, who may or may not know you, can you introduce yourself and who you are in the quilting universe?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Anna. That's my child in the background. I go by Wax and Wayne Studio. I design and sell quilt patterns. I also design fabric for Hawthorne Supply Co. And I edit your podcast.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah, I'm having all the people on who work for me on my team, as we say. And I'd love for the listeners to hear how you and I kind of crossed paths. So, do you want to share from your perspective?
Sure, yeah. If I'm remembering correctly, I think we met on the Quilt Buzz call,
Yeah.
right? When we interviewed you. Yeah. So I used to edit and was a host for Quilt Buzz, the podcast that came out in March of 2020. And I started that podcast with Amanda of Broadcloth Studio and Wendy of The Weekend Quilter. And I think you met them through other projects, right? Was it like a group project or something? You knew one or both of them?
I think I met Wendy first. Yeah. And we
Okay.
went to QuiltCon and they're like, let's meet up. So we went out and then kind of stayed in touch. Yeah.
Yeah. And if that was at QuiltCon, you probably met my cardboard cutout that they
Oh my gosh, I did.
took
That's
around
right.
everywhere. It was so embarrassing, but so funny.
Yeah. So I
um,
guess we met back then. You just didn't know
we met,
it.
but it was a cardboard cutout version of me.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
yeah, I think we interviewed you in the spring of 21. Was that right? Or
Mm-hmm.
was it in
Yep.
2020? Okay.
No, it was kind of after the pandemic because I remember Amanda saying the word pandemic. She's like, edit that out. I don't want to talk about the pandemic. And I was
Oh,
like,
right,
I
right.
know it was after. So there we are. I brought it up again, even though she
Yeah.
wanted it edited out. But the thing I remember was it on my end of that call, I felt like the technology I was having problems and I was like, this is going to sound terrible. And then the podcast came out and I was like, whoa, that sounded amazing. They have some kind of magic with their editing. And I don't know if they told me you did or if I asked, but when I knew that you did that and I was starting a podcast, I'm like, I want her to do my editing because that was amazing. So how did you get chosen or offered to do that, have that position on the podcast?
Well, we just kind of fell into place. Like we had been talking about the podcast for a while, like probably almost a year. It was Amanda's idea initially, and Wendy and I were just like bad influences. Like, yeah, of course, let's add one more thing to our plate. Like, of course, we need to do this. And I had played around with GarageBand, the editing software, before, just like, just pretending to play keyboard and just playing around. And so I offered because I wanted to learn more about the program itself. And so I kind of just taught myself and ended up there.
So do you play the piano? Now I'm very intrigued.
No, not at all. No, it was more like in college, we had a group of friends who would just like to mess around. They could all play instruments, but I couldn't. And so I would just pretend and
I have my suspicions that you do play, but I could be wrong. I bet you're better than you think you are. So, okay, where do you live? And you've switched, you don't do the editing for the Quilt Buzz. Tell me how your career has kind of shifted. I mean, we can hear you have a child. Like, what's life looking like for you?
Yeah, so I live in Pennsylvania, about an hour outside Philadelphia. Yeah, the addition of baby number 3 left me with a lot less time, and so I unfortunately had to take a step back from Quilt Buzz, but Amanda and Wendy are still going strong and they're doing amazing work. But I wanted more time to work on my own things, and so like I said, I sell quilt patterns on my website, and I also design fabric for Hawthorne Supply Co. And I have some big projects that I really want to work on, and I needed that time for myself. So right now I'm focusing on making collections of mini quilts that can then be like mixed and matched together to create bigger quilts. I like the idea of putting a little more of like the creative decision making process in the hands of the maker rather than just following the pattern straight, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's cool. So that's yet to come out. You haven't released those yet.
Well, it's in the process. I have 9 are released. 4 of them were just released in the Bright Collective magazine through Making. I want to have 20 total, so at least 4 are going to come out this year.
Awesome. Anna, thanks so much for being here. I'm so glad that our paths crossed and I could find you as an editor for my podcast. You've been amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Charisse, thanks so much for being here. We've had you on the podcast before. By we, I mean I've had you on the podcast. But, this episode I'm having my team on, the people who work for me. And one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for a listener who's maybe thinking of hiring someone or wanting to down the road is, how do I know who to hire? So from your perspective, how did you find me? And then I'll share how I, found you.
Yes. Well, initially, a friend of mine, Mary of Merry Go Round Quilts, she had taken your pattern writing course the year before I did. And when it came up the following year, I hemmed and hawed, and Mary was awesome. She was like, Charisse, just do it. And I was like, you're right. And so I did, and so grateful for that push that I really needed. But yes, that's how I found you, and is from the pattern writing course. I was relatively new in my design path and pattern writing path, and so it was like, let's just go ahead and do this now, so that way you're off on the right foot and get going. So haven't regretted the decision since then, and that's where it initially came about.
And I'm trying to remember in my mind. So from my perspective, what I remember is I saw your first pattern. We had a Facebook group, and you were like, hey, can we organize it this way so it's clean and organized? And there were things where I was like, I like how she is on top of it. Like, you have some skills that I don't. And I consider that like a talent of mine, is I can recognize things in other people, So I saw that in you, and I was like, she's good at this. Now, what I do not remember is how you started to do my Pinterest account. How did we jump from me recognizing you've got some special set of skills to Pinterest?
Actually, it was in our post-graduation call where we did like our one-on-one coaching call. And we talked about my organization. And, it's funny when you mentioned that first conversation, I was really nervous in asking that. Just because, really? Yeah, that's how my brain works. And it's like trying to be organized. It's like, either this is going to go great, or she's like, yeah, we might need to find a special place for her. But thankfully it went okay. Yeah, and it was in that post-graduation one-on-one chat that we were talking about it. And we were talking about where I was personally and where I wanted to business-wise, and how I wanted to get to where I wanted to go. And because of my organization and things like that, that's where that kind of came about. It was a need that you had. It was a need that I could possibly fill. But the question was it something that I was truly interested in? And, at first it was like, I don't know, to be quite honest. But when it came down to it, over the course of, goodness, we're coming on a year now, or maybe past a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't actually remember. But along the line of however long it's been, I have actually realized the need that is out there and the synergies that I can bring to the table for those that have quilty businesses, and taking their Pinterest accounts and their presence in Pinterest to the next level. So it's helped all the way around, and not just me from a business, personal, and just other businesses such as yours, to do just that and to help increase that presence, and even actually, I can't even say increase it in some cases. Some cases it started from scratch. So it's been extremely helpful in that way. So I'm surprised. I just did not expect to be here about a year ago, but here I am.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was thinking as I was logging out of this call, I love that I don't have to think at all about Pinterest. It's growing, it's doing its magic, and I'm not having to even think about it. Like, you just take the stuff that I'm putting out, you repurpose it, and it's wonderful. Because as a business owner, there's all these things that we should be doing. We cannot do it all. It's impossible. So you either,
Absolutely.
if you're on your own, you have to pick and choose, or if you have the luxury of hiring somebody, you can hire someone and have them do it for you, which is exactly what I did here. And you run Pinterest for a few other quilterpreneurs, is that correct?
I do. There are, including yourself, 7 at the moment.
Nice.
And right now I'm actually looking to bring someone on to assist me with it because of the need that is out there. In order to meet those needs and those that are interested, is that's what I'm looking to do, is bring someone on board to assist me with that. So
No way. Look at that. That's so cool.
I know. That's funny. Are you talking about bringing people on board and hiring people? It's like, yeah, I'm doing just that too.
So how are you finding your person?
Oh, goodness. So for right now, is I am trying to tap into those that, and we'll say usually younger
Yeah.
or older. So those that are getting started in their career, looking for extra income, or those that are reaching that retirement sort of age group where they like, I want to do something. I want to earn extra income, but I don't want the stress
Yep.
of wherever it was they came from in their previous life. So I'm honestly starting kind of similarly with people that I know.
Yep.
And it's like, do you know somebody that is in that group that will be interested? So, you start with the people that you know, go for recommendations, versus kind of starting from scratch and you never know what you're going to get.
Right, exactly. Well, it's good to have a trial period for both of you to make sure, are we a good fit for each other? And we'll
Oh,
give
yes,
this however
definitely.
long, and that's exciting. So it's come to this point in a year or however long it's been.
I know.
So the
Time
conversation,
flies, right?
It does. The conversation that we had, was it me saying, "Hey, you have a good set of skills in this area, and I have a need. Would you be interested in doing this?" Is that how that played out?
Yeah, basically. And I had the need too because I was, at that point, I was about to become a single parent, single mom, and, so having a business that would be able to support the three of us
Yeah.
was, well, necessary. And so the timing worked out great. And it just so happens that initially it was well, this is what I have to do to support my family, and turned into it's not about do I have to. I guess maybe, but it's more of like I actually want to. It took that whole have to out of it, and wanting to makes it a huge difference when it comes to how you approach it, because if you don't want to do it and you're doing it just because you need to, you're going to lose something.
Yes.
You're not going to feel it, and it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
And that will translate into your outcomes and everybody else that I do their Pinterest for. It will translate into their outcomes. So the good news is that have to has completely left. It's like, I actually want to do this. So thankfully that happened.
Good. Yay. Well, and it's kind of cool that you have these other quilting Pinterest accounts because you can repin each other's. Like, exactly who's posting and you can repin. So it actually serves other quilterpreneurs to have you do their Pinterest because you automatically know that you are going to be promoting these people's, Pinterest pins and all that.
Exactly. And that's what comes with the package, basically, is that you can put your pins out there into the Pinterest universe, even into the Tailwind app, which is a secondary app used to schedule out your pins. But you can put them out there, and fingers crossed that somebody else will reshare it or repin it. But what I bring to the table is that it will happen, and you can utilize those that have very similar either styles or, things along those lines, and I can make sure that happens.
Yep.
So you otherwise you can't. I mean, absolutely, you can take the chance, and it probably will happen. But is it probably versus absolutely? Those are the two things you have to weigh.
Well, and just for me, the time. Like, yeah, I've taken a couple courses on Pinterest. I know how to do it. It's not a matter of that. I'd rather put my energy elsewhere, but I don't want to give up the results from Pinterest. So voila, here you are. So yeah.
Absolutely, because it can make such a huge difference when it comes to traffic to your website, revenue, those things that are most important to your business. And that's one thing, reason why I concentrate on just quilt related businesses, because you can leverage each other and have that to work and to benefit each business on its own. Otherwise, could I diversify and things like that? Yes. But why spread so thin where you're not really serving anybody to the best of your ability? So, because I've been asked by whether it's, crocheters or knitters or things like that. It's like, I'm sorry, as much as I would like to help you, this is my concentration.
Good.
This is
Good
my
for you.
niche
Yes.
down. Yes,
Yes.
right?
That makes me very proud and happy. Good job. Because it can be easy and short-sighted, like, oh, that's more money. I'll do it. But then you shoot yourself in the foot and long-term game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many more benefits to being that specific, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be necessarily just quilt pattern
Right.
designers. Even if you're a fabric shop, if you're a fabric, like a textile designer, like a fabric designer, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Absolutely. Anything kind of related into that sphere goes into it and can be beneficial to each other.
Which is awesome. So, and I'm glad that I can freely share your information and know that I'm not compromising the quality of your work for me. So, so
No?
yeah, for if people, listeners want to find you, how do they find you?
Oh, very simply. Well, there's my website, hooked on treasures.com. There's also Instagram, which is at so hooked on treasures, all spelled the same, and also email. And that's so hooked on treasures at gmail.com. I try to keep it pretty
Nice.
simple.
Consistent across the board.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I am so glad that we had that call a year and however long ago and that it's worked. I mean, selfishly, I'm very glad, but also for you, like, I'm really glad that it's worked and been successful.
Selfishly, I'm glad too.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
It is, totally.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, Serena, thank you for being here. And yeah, for our listeners, do you just want to describe, I'm, having everyone from my team on the podcast. Do you want to describe what you do for Quilters Candy?
Yeah, so I am, I guess, the bookkeeper slash CFO finance person at Quilters Candy, me and my team. So I have a team of bookkeepers and accountants, and with all of our clients, we each kind of service as a group each client. So there's always someone available to take care of our clients. So we have a bookkeeper and an accounting manager, and then myself, the CFO. And so everything goes through layers of review and all that good stuff. So what we do with you specifically is we do weekly, sometimes bi-weekly bookkeeping to keep everything up to date. And then at the end of the month, we reconcile all the accounts, put together your financial statements, and send a nice little Loom video explaining what happened with your numbers that month and comparing to the previous month so that you can make better decisions in your business and understand where your money's going, where it all came from. And of course, we're always here along the way to answer questions that pop up, like about sales tax, or should I invest in this thing, or should I buy or purchase this other thing? So we love to be included in our clients' decisions and help them make better decisions. So we try to keep those communication lines open.
Yeah. Well, and it's been really interesting. So I hired you in, what is it, 2023? So I hired you in end of 2021. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, because we've definitely been at it a full year.
Yes, it has to be because so I have this craft to career course and I was putting together, I'm showing them like from year one till now what my revenue and profit has been,
Mhm.
which is very interesting to look at. But one of the years I was like, wow, I doubled my revenue, but my profit dipped from the year before. And so I reached out to you because that was the first year that I hired you. And I'm so glad it was because I was like, what happened? I don't
Yeah, we had
remember
that
why.
history. Yeah.
And and then you were like, well, it's education. I was like, what exactly did I spend that on? And you sent me, I'm like, aha, that's right. Now I remember. That's what that was. So it's very, very, what you measure grows. Like I've seen it. And I have friends in the quilting industry who, I'll be honest, until I hired you, I kind of put my head in the sand. Like, what's your revenue? What's your profit? I was like, I don't totally know, but I'm doing fine. So we'll
Yeah.
just say I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's
you can
typical.
speak to, is it? I mean, I
Yeah, it
can't be
is.
alone, right? Okay.
It's very typical, especially if like if you're able to cover all your bills, you're not like and even people that kind of stress out about the money situation, those people probably have even more difficulty looking at the numbers because it's like this endless loop of stress. And so they're like, if I look, it's going to stress me out more. But if I don't look, I'll just be a little bit stressed. I'm just going to like wish and hope and manifest that it all works out. I'll just sell more. And a lot of times that'll get somebody to a certain point. But then you get to the point where you're like, okay, now I actually need to know what is working and what am I just wasting time and money on. And sometimes it's a time situation, not necessarily a money. Like one of the things that I love doing is breaking down your revenue by your different programs or types of income. So one-on-one coaching versus a program versus your pattern writing, consulting, things like that. Whatever different revenue streams you have, it's really important to break those down so that you can go back and look to see, well, where is most of my money coming from, and where am I spending all my time? Because a lot of times, like, you know, the Pareto principle, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your time. So
Hmm.
looking at it of like, what do I enjoy doing and what have I been spending my time on versus where is the money coming from? It helps make more objective decisions instead of thinking that all your money is coming from fabric sales or whatever, but most of it's coming from like highly leveraged activity that you're not very spending very much time on. So you don't realize that that's your money maker. So it's really good to be paying attention to those things.
Yeah. Well, and a year ago or so, I was toying with the idea of getting rid of my quilt pattern writing course. And I was like, I'm going to go all in on this other thing. And then I look at the numbers. I'm like, that would be the dumbest thing. Like, that's my big generator for my
Hmm.
income. Like, what? You know, so now I'm like, well, let's put all the eggs in that basket. And it's been very lucrative and successful and fun and rewarding. And
Yeah.
had I not looked at the numbers, I would have just gone with my whim of like, well,
Yeah.
let's do this, you know? So absolutely. So, when do people normally hire a CPA? Like I said, I didn't for years.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple different stages of business that you'll need different help with. So, and not all bookkeepers are CPAs and can do taxes. So it's important to kind of decide like, okay, probably a good idea to hire a bookkeeper as soon as you can afford it. But a lot of times people will do their own bookkeeping and just hire a CPA or a tax pro to do the stuff at year end. And that is okay for certain budgets. Like if you don't have the budget to work with a bookkeeper each month, that's fine, but you're only going to basically be looking at your numbers at year end when it's too late to make decisions. So you have to kind of weigh that benefit cost.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you work with a bookkeeper throughout the year, even on a quarterly basis, you'll stay on top of things a lot quicker and be able to make shifts and changes. But I what I see is typically people two two times people come to us for bookkeeping, and one is if they just know from the very beginning they are not quote unquote numbers people, they're not analytical, and they don't really want to be sitting in front of the computer doing their own bookkeeping. They'll come to us early on, under 100,000 in revenue, because they're like, I just know from the beginning I'm going to outsource this because I have no business doing it. And then there's other people that want to learn how to kind of stay on top of those things and what to look for, and know that if they're not involved in the day-to-day of it, they won't look at it. So they learn towards the beginning, and then when they get to a certain point it doesn't make sense for them to be spending the time on it anymore. Like if they're spending more than an hour or two a month, they're like, I could be spending these hours selling or doing something different, marketing and growing my business. And so at that point, they usually hand it over to us. So yeah, most of our clients are between, I would say between 100,000 in revenue and 500,000 in revenue for the most part. We have some
Mm-hmm.
outliers, but the majority of our clients are in that range. And it seems to be a sweet spot because in that range, people are still interested in knowing what's happening and like
Yep.
learning. And we like to be able to teach our clients like what to look for. So that's our sweet spot as a firm.
So I'm curious, do you have clients that are in the million, and at that point, are they more checked out or are they more involved?
I would say like clients that are it depends on the business. So I have some clients that are different industries and and sometimes it's like it's one of their multiple businesses that they're investors in and so they're not as like they know what's kind of happening and they've got their hands in lots of different businesses so they're like just give me the financial statement, send me a summary email, we're good.
Okay, yeah.
And they don't need as much like education and hand holding. So I would say at that point, that's kind of that level of client. But we all started somewhere too. So even
Yep.
those people started at some point in their career learning all the things that help them get to the point to be able to invest in multiple businesses, right?
True. Well, and then now I'm going to put you on the spot here. This is a personal question for me and my business. Um, if I'm wanting to bring someone on full time, my husband's like, don't do it because then you have to pay for medical. Is this all true? And how
I,
much does that end up costing a person?
Yeah. So you don't have to provide benefits for employees until you get to like a certain level of like number of employees. And I think in most states, that's usually around 50 employees. So it would be a
Oh,
long time before you were actually required to offer benefits. Now you can choose to offer benefits as soon as you want um, to to full-time employees. But one of the things that I've come across, because I have one full-time employee and the rest of my employees are part-time, in order for me to put health insurance through our business, I have to have one employee like have raised their hand, said, I promise I will enroll. Right? So we have
okay.
to have someone that's going to opt in into the health insurance plan for me to even be able to run it through my business for me and my family. So that's one thing that you might come up against too. If you have just one full-time employee and that employee is actually on their spouse's plan, then they wouldn't even be interested in enrolling sometimes. So,
Okay. So I
but
don't
yeah,
have to offer that.
you don't have to offer it. There's other benefits you could always offer to make it more enticing for employees, especially the millennium generation.
Yeah.
We're more, especially mothers who are millennials, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are more interested in having time flexibility so that we can be there to pick our kids up from school or go on field trips or volunteer with the PTA or whatever it is, church, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one thing that even throughout my career, I had tried to negotiate when I was in corporate. I was like, how about you don't give me health insurance and I'll work 30 hours a week instead? And they would not go for it. But I'm like, I would
Really?
totally go for that if an employee came to me and was like, I don't want health insurance, but I just want to have a flexible
Right?
schedule. Heck yeah. And so
Huh.
that's kind
Interesting.
of the way that we're trying to build the environment at our firm is creating what we couldn't have in corporate and making it more flexible so that people are at the top of their game when they're at work. It's way more
Yeah.
valuable for everybody.
Well, and what's the difference? So all of my employees right now are contract employees. What is it called when they're not contract? It's
Just employees. So like a
oh, an
W-2,
employee.
they'll be
Okay.
getting
All right.
wages and a W-2 at year end instead of being responsible for their own taxes. So that's the main difference between a contractor and an employee. And this is a very common question we get. I actually have a blog on our website about it because so many people are confused about it. There are certain instances where you probably should have them as an actual employee. But when they're a contractor, it's more flexible because you typically don't dictate the hours they work. they use their own tools and computers and things like that. They're free to freelance and work with other businesses as well. And you don't have to worry about paying their payroll taxes. And so that's very enticing for a lot of business owners. It falls on the contractor. But as an employee, you are then responsible for withholding their payroll taxes and contributing into Social Security and Medicare for them, right? The
Oh,
employer
okay. I didn't know
match.
that.
Yeah. So in some instances, it's more expensive to have an employee, and sometimes it's not. It's actually cheaper because for some reason, a lot of people they don't prefer to have to manage their own taxes. So they're willing to get paid maybe $20 an hour instead of 30 if you handle all their taxes for them. You know what I mean? Like, so
Okay.
they
Yeah,
don't
I
have
could
to
see
worry
that.
about it. So sometimes contractors are more expensive and sometimes they're not. It just kind of depends. But yeah, there's definitely more compliance to deal with when you have an employee. Like you need a payroll provider. Shout out to Gusto. That's what we
Okay, I
use.
was like, is that Gusto? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other companies use ADP when you start to have a lot more employees. That's a popular one. But Gusto is our preference, and that's how I run payroll in my firm as well.
So yeah, I can see now, and again, but this whole podcast episode is about hiring people, but I can see now I'm getting to a point in my business where I'm starting to desire a little bit more having an employee where they are focused
Mhm.
100% on my business, where it's like, anyhow, I can see I'm getting there. So we'll have
Yeah.
to chat sometime about what that would look like financially
Yeah,
and then for them if they'd
absolutely.
want to.
Yeah, and Gusto actually has payroll calculators on their website that you can go and kind of plan for this and be like, okay, I know I want to hire this certain position. Let me go onto their website and see how much it's actually going to cost me. Because if I offer to pay somebody $40,000 a year salary, well, I'm also going to be paying payroll taxes on top of that. So what's the true cost, right? And so you can
Mm-hmm.
calculate that on Gusto and you can break it down by like how many, if you're going to pay them weekly, what it would look like weekly versus monthly, and all those things. And yeah, typically what we plan for is when we're like going to hire somebody, we plan for the salary plus 20% because that'll cover payroll taxes and any like equipment or computers that you need to purchase for them. So that's a good rule of thumb. If you're going to offer health insurance and benefits on top of that, 30% is what you want to add to their salary to budget for it.
Okay.
And we call that the burden rate.
Yes, it is. It is a little bit of a burden. So I'll probably push it off a little further, but and it from what you've seen with companies, I mean, I have a business coach. I'll go and chat with her about this, but what position do people generally hire for their first employee, and is it generally, do they see that that pays off, or do you see people like, oh, I shot myself in the foot and I should have done that?
Both. So I
Okay.
think it honestly it comes down to being very attuned to what you want that person doing. So before you even decide to go out and start looking, you have to sit down and evaluate what are the tasks I absolutely need off my plate? What are the tasks I absolutely hate doing? And can I make a job description out of all of these things and get them off my plate or whoever else's and start there? I would say the first employee that a lot of solopreneurs end up hiring is like an executive assistant slash administrative assistant because it kind of is like a catch-all of like they can handle your email and your calendar and schedule podcast interviews and um, coordinate different things, right? And they can also be in the student support inbox answering student questions and things like that. You'll get more of a well-rounded person. And then when you call them an executive assistant, you can always this is always something you can just put it in the job description that this is a requirement. But I may ask you to schedule my laundry pickup or my dry cleaning or whatever you can, like personal stuff too,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times, especially as mothers, there's a lot of help we need actually with household stuff too, because we're stretched so thin with working in the business and managing the household that that's why I like that position as a first hire as an executive assistant because they're kind of there to support you personally and professionally. Um, the first hire I actually did in my business was a part-time bookkeeper because when I first started my business, it was just me. I was doing all the bookkeeping and the financial statements and everything for my clients. And it just got kind of difficult to be in the weeds and have this higher level strategic overview. And so I hired a part-time bookkeeper to help take off the day-to-day tasks of bookkeeping for me because I wasn't quite big enough to really need like an administrative assistant at that point. I was very part-time. So that was that decision and why I made that decision early on. But then the second hire was more of a like executive assistant type person.
Who scheduled all your things for you. And
Yeah, and she monitors our help inbox and our student inbox because we have a course as well. So she helps on both sides of the business and helps me run the team meetings, and she's amazing.
nice.
So,
Yeah,
and
that's
she's full
awesome.
time.
Okay. See, yeah, I'm starting to think. So how did you find her? And then we'll be done because I've taken way more time than I said I would, but
That's
this is really
okay.
good. So
How did I find her? I actually found her in I was in a program for course creators learning a certain launch strategy. I do a paid boot camp method for my launches. And she was in that group as well because she was trying to kind of figure out like, does she want to try this online business thing? She was a teacher and she was trying to find something more flexible so she could be with her kids and whatnot. And was ready to just be out of teaching. And she was in that group kind of like learning, trying to learn like what all this online business thing is, like in courses and stuff like that, and trying to figure out what she wanted to do and like how she could help people. And so she was learning how to do Facebook ads.
Hmm.
And I had posted in the group, like, I've done this one launch. I did my own Facebook ads. I know how it's supposed to be. I just need somebody to take it over and I can hand you the process basically. And she raised her hand and was like, I'm still learning, but I would love to help you. And I was like, great. So I hired her as a contractor initially just to help with Facebook ads. And then I started being like, hey, can you schedule this email in Kajabi? Can you like learn this other thing and help with this for this launch coming up? And she was just so willing to learn new things and just help wherever she could that like 6 months later, I ended up just retiring her from her teacher job and hiring her full time.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so jealous. So it just worked out that
It
she
just
had the
worked out. I
skills.
think, like finding the right team is sort of like finding the right clients. It's like you're not just marketing for clients or customers, you're also marketing for attracting a good team. So
Yeah.
if people see that like you're going places and you have a good heart and whatnot, and your mission of your business is like very well known, the way you present yourself, I think you'll attract the right people.
And how often do you have a team meeting with everyone on your team?
Weekly, every Tuesday. Every Tuesday,
Okay.
I block off basically my whole work day for team meetings and one-on-ones. So I'll alternate one-on-ones with people, but everybody gets on the team meeting together once a
Because
week.
we had talked about my team doing a monthly call starting in January, and I was out of town and I came back. I'm like, all right, when do we have our weekly calls? They're like, weekly, it's monthly. And I was like, is it? Shoot, because I
You
can
could you
actually
could
see the
start
benefit of
bi-weekly, but
this. Yeah, I know this
yeah.
will be the first time if they're listening, like she's thinking of weekly. Surprise. Yes, I'm
That's
thinking of
that's what
weekly.
my team learns all the things that I'm planning by listening to my podcast or listening to my Facebook lives. They're like, "Okay, note that Serena said this date."
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Well, this was really great. I love chatting with you, and I'm
yeah,
sure I'll be in
anytime.
touch sooner than later about, hiring and all the
Yep.
things. But
Well, we can
if
talk
our
about it on our year-end meeting. So,
yes, yes. Well, and we have a call this week
yep.
actually. So, anyhow, surprise. But so if our listeners want to find you, where's
Yeah.
the best place to find you?
Pretty much Instagram or LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm at, of course, bookkeeping, and on LinkedIn, I'm just Serena Shoop. So you can find me those two
Nice.
places.
And you have a podcast too. It's got some
I
great
do.
stuff. What's
I
that called?
do. It's the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. It's more geared toward other bookkeepers and accountants as I help mentor on that side as well. But yeah, that's my podcast. And then my website, of course, bookkeeping.com.
Yeah. And you have courses. What are those? And
Yeah. So my courses are currently all of the courses that I have out there are for other bookkeepers and accountants and starting their own businesses and like elevating their services for their clients. But I do have some things in the works for like client facing for those of you who are not quite ready to hire a bookkeeper, but you're like lost on how to do your bookkeeping. That is in the works. So stay tuned for that. You can find information on my website about that.
Smart. That's good. I'm glad you're offering that because I know a lot of people want to do that before they, hire someone. So
Yeah.
very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
All right, Misty, thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so for our listeners, this is rather interesting because most everyone else, minus my financial person, I found through the quilting community. But do you remember when I reached out to you and how? Like, what did I ask or say?
Oh, actually, when you very first reached out, I actually think I might have approached you.
Oh, did you?
I think so. I was looking for kind of a part-time job, specifically something I could do from home. And I was kind of just putting feelers out there with some friends and some people in the church community and just trying to see if anyone had any ideas of what, if they had an experience working from home. You just never know with at-home jobs, working from home jobs. So I was putting out some feelers out there and you came and approached me. And I think it was was it 2015 or 16 when you were starting?
Yeah, 16.
Yeah. So it was about that time, about 2016. And you were, I guess, you had the Quilters Candy box, starting up the Quilters Candy box. And you had said, hey, my neighbors are kind of helping me once in a while filling these boxes. And I'm actually looking for some more help to get these orders out and fulfilled. And so would you be interested? And I was like, yes, that sounds amazing. But I don't think I truly understood what the quilting industry was all about. And you were like, why don't you come with me to Quilt Market? Come with me and see what it's about. So I went to, before I think I started working for you, you took me to Quilt Market, and I just had no idea that the quilting industry was just so big and that this creative aspect had so much to offer. And it was just a whole world that I never really knew existed. And I loved seeing all of the absolutely gorgeous quilts and booths and fabrics and people that you introduced me to. And it was just so intriguing and interesting and made me want to learn and to see what this was all about. So I said yes. And so you had me start helping with fulfillment with those boxes. And I don't know, let's see, I helped you by storing all the notions and the fabrics and did some ordering and some customer service emails related to that subscription box. And so for a couple of days out of the month, my living room was full with wall to wall with hundreds of boxes and tissue paper and stickers and candy and fabric and all the fun, notions that went in the boxes. And, my kids would come home from school and they go, oh, it's box day, and they just knew to stay out of the living room in my organized chaos. And they just, so it was really fun. And it was really cool to see all of the, all of the notions and all the things that went into that. And it was exciting for me every month to just pack it up. And, I had the perfect kind of setup at that time. I had a covered front porch. And so after I packaged up all those boxes, I could put them out on the porch and contact the mail carrier to pick them up. And I don't know if she looked forward to that once a month pickup stop or not, but we tried to, make sure she knew she was appreciated and gave her a little treat from that month's box or whatever and a little, thank you. So, but it was really fun and it was a really it was just perfect for me. And so I hope it was helpful to you and helped you free up some
Oh
time
my
to expand
gosh.
and grow and, grow your business.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you were so good at packing too, because even when I did that, I'd try to have a system. I would, whatever, this is TMI, but I would have a system, like I would do 10 boxes at a time. So I'd pull out 10 items and I'd have
Uh-huh.
my little system, and then I would do 10 more. But get without fail, there would be a box a month that was missing something or, whatever.
Right.
You never had that. Like you literally never had that. I was like, well, don't worry, it'll happen. And it didn't. It never happened. I was
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
oh.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I don't remember. Yeah, but yeah, I tried to be pretty organized with it. Tried to be exact so I wouldn't miss anything. So I'm glad it worked, whatever I did. But
I know,
yeah,
right?
it was good. It was fun. So
And you also did a very good job of just making it look very cute. That was a big deal for me. Like, I want the experience to be very nice from the moment they open the box. And you did a very good
yeah,
job of that.
thank you.
And yeah, I mean, my husband was grateful. He's like, oh, all the stuff is gone. So I was like, I feel really bad for them, but
No, it was only a few days a month where it was all over, but that it worked out really well. It was really not bad. So yeah.
And then I stopped doing the boxes. And I think there was a period where I was like, I hope to hire you back. I just don't have anything right now. Is that right?
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah, after you stopped doing the boxes and you were kind of pivoting and trying to figure out a new direction, stepping away from that. I did a few things here and there for you, and then I just, yeah, we stepped away from each other for a little while just as you were figuring that out, and then I think once you got a little more established with the new business ideas and had that all formulated, you approached me again to ask me with fulfillment, but this time with your own patterns that you designed, and as well as some fabric and things here and there. So I, of course, was like, yes, I'd be happy to help again. And so, yeah, so I think that's how that
Yeah.
happened.
And you do, it's just so nice. So now when I reorder patterns, they just go straight to your house. Whenever a wholesale order comes in or someone buys on the store, you're the one to ship them out.
Yes.
So you and
yes.
I both have like the printing labels at our house. And now you have the capability, if we ran out of something, you just go and order more, like tissue
Right.
paper, stickers, all that.
Yeah, packing supplies, things. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And which I'll just tell you now, this is too funny. So we had a podcast episode a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to raise all my prices. My patterns are now $15. So
Oh,
can you email the wholesaler distributors and let them know that the price is
yes.
now raised to 15?
Sure.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I can make that happen. Yeah, I'm sure.
This is so official here.
Oh, that's funny.
I know. So there we are in action. So yeah, that's another thing is you send the invoices out when a company emails and says we'd like to order wholesale.
Yes.
They go through you send the invoice, you ship them out, and it's just a lovely thing. The only thing that I've noticed is if I want to give someone a pattern, I'm like, oh, those are at Misty's. So a few weeks ago, I'm like, I was like, can I just come and grab a couple of each one just to have? So
yes. Yeah, that's true. But yeah.
And so, yeah. And now I am toying with, I'm trying to figure out growing the business and what roles people will have. So we're trying the affiliate to have you run the affiliate thing.
Yes. So So aside from the affiliate marketing this year, I'm really looking forward to starting to get more involved with that. And let's see, what else do I do?
I know. I'm like, what else here?
I help with the guest blog posts.
Oh yeah, yes.
So I'm the contact for that and make sure that they have the information that they need and
Well, this is kind of this was a learning curve. So I taught you, to the best of my knowledge, about some SEO, like how to get the green happy smiley face so that your SEO is good, and keywords to use, giving images alternate text, stuff like that. So there is a learning curve, and just the WordPress isn't initially, I feel like, super user friendly, but you pick it up, and
it took a little bit to figure it out for me anyway. And I'm sure could improve there, but yeah, you've been really patient with me and trying to figure that all out. And so, but now that I've been doing it a while, it's just, it's obviously coming a little easier for me, and WordPress it's been really, really good to I think it's a really good platform to use. So for
Yeah.
that. But
Well, and I mean, for the listeners too. So I have a guest blog post every week. And so that's a lot for you. It's so awesome that I don't have to worry about paying the guest bloggers. I don't have
yes.
to worry about anything. They email you the blog, you post it, you all the things. It's done. And if you go to my Instagram page and you click the link in my bio, there's a link that's like latest blog post. You update that. Same with the
Right.
podcast. So you
Mm-hmm.
listen to the podcast every week, double check the editing, you write the show notes, you publish it, make sure that it's published every week. Um, and also the link in my click the link in my bio, and you post to the Instagram feed for Craft a Career. I don't even touch that. That's all you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
So
just
yeah, you do a
everything to
lot.
do with the podcast, just making sure it's, up there and ready to go on Friday release day, and summarizing, helping with that, and making sure your website is up to date. And so yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed listening to the podcast every week. It's been really
Yeah.
fun to learn and to grow. Even though I don't have yet my own creative business, I feel like I'm just gleaning and learning so much from the podcast each week, and I hope to be able to actually utilize some of that information I'm learning in the future. So I just am really enjoying working for you in that aspect, because I feel it's just so helpful. You have you have so much to offer, and so much for those to share, to find success, and to share who they are, and to have what they have to offer to the world. And so I think it's just you're in the right place for you and your talents. I love it.
Oh, well, that
So
is very sweet of you. Thank
oh
you. I feel like I'm so grateful to have you here. I mean, as we're talking and I'm going through all the things, I'm like, oh my gosh, you do a lot for
oh
me and you do a good job. I mean,
oh, thank
I
you.
don't think about it because I don't have to think about it. That's the lovely thing. You take all of
Yeah.
it off my plate, so that
Oh,
I
well,
can
good.
focus on other things.
Good.
So yeah, well, I guess I mean you don't really have do you a public Instagram account? It's not like you're a quilterpreneur or anything like that.
Yeah, I have my own personal account, and then I'm starting up an account for my art, Misty Ming
Oh.
_art. But that's, yeah. So I don't. Unfortunately, I think I am, like you said, one of the only ones that don't actively have any quilting things out there. So yeah,
Nope, that's totally fine. Well, okay, so Misty Meng, Meng is MENG_art.
that's correct. And I'm just putting it out. It's brand new, so there's really not much on there yet. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me. And I have my personal Instagram account and Facebook. So yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to be checking out your Instagram. That's really neat. I did not know that. Very
Thanks.
cool. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for working on the Quilters Candy team. You are an awesome addition. So glad you've been
Absolutely.
here.
Thank you.
So, how about that? How was it for you to meet the rest of my team? I hope that you got some insight into what the process has been like for me bringing people onto the team. And I hope that you gleaned some ideas for your own business. You may be at the point, you may be past the point where you want to hire someone. So, I hope that you got some help with that. And also, if you go to quilterscandy.com/91, you can get a little cheat sheet on how to hire someone, what to look for. If it doesn't work out, what kind of wording could you use? Just some general tips on getting started for hiring somebody. So again, that's quilterscandy.com/91. And if you have not left a review for the podcast yet, please do. There are 118 of you who've left a review, which it warms my heart. It actually means so much to me that you would take the time. And some of you, I know you had to Google how to leave a review. In fact, one person reached out and was like, my husband and I have decided we need to leave more reviews for companies everywhere, which was very good for me to hear. I'm like, I should be doing that too. And not just the negative ones, right? Like if you had a really great experience, there's a hotel we went to in New York. I love it. I tell everyone about it. I'm going to go to Yelp and leave a review for them because it really helps businesses to get positive reviews. So if you are enjoying the Craft to Career podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. And if this is something that you find helpful, or if you have a friend that you think, oh, this episode is exactly what they need, go ahead and share the link or take a screenshot and send them a photo. The purpose of this podcast is to reach those who are out there who are wanting to start a business, who maybe don't know how to do it, or they're not having the success that they want, or they just want a little bit of, especially when we talk about when you're feeling down or isolated or someone's saying you charge too much, just to have someone in your corner to cheer you on. So if you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, go ahead and share it with them, because I want to connect the creative and the quilterpreneurs and lift the standard in the industry to help us feel empowered and to bring a better quality product. So thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed having my team come and talk with you and share what they do. And even for some to remind me, oh, that's right, that is how we met. Oh, that's funny. It's looked like this over time. So it's been really fun for me as well. So thank you for being here. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you right here next Friday on the Craft to Career podcast.